welcome to Plant a Good Seed live video podcast here on IBM TV. We're so excited you guys are in for such a treat. We have Crissy Keye Rollins joining us today. Hopefully she'll be popped in here in just a second. She has got so much. There she is. Hey, Crissy.
Hi, thanks for having me, Tish. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, great. It's such an honor to have you here. So I want to tell folks a little bit about how we met. Crissy, I'll back up just a minute too. Crissy is one of those folks that continually puts out consistent, real information, not just the surface little, we're just going to dance about this, but you got to do all these other things to get the real treat. So she had this seminar that I was like, oh, I need to do this. It was about social media. And I thought, great. And I drove out, she's in Johnson County, and went out, and then we got there, and there was a little thing because I had a different expectation than what she had. And we stood there for and she came right up to me, and she was like, hi, and she kind of, and we kind of looked at each other for one quick second, and she was like, you know what? I believe you're here for a purpose. We're both here. Let's move forward. And we agreed, and it was beautiful. So it showed that right there in the moment that she really cares about getting her message across and helping people. It's not about the money. It's not about all these other things. It's about us connecting as human beings. So that's just how I met her. That was like the first 2 minutes that I met this woman. And since then, I've learned that she's so many things, and I've tried to just put some things together here. First of all, I think she's a thought leader. Because she continually adds value. She's not just tag teaming on what other people are saying. It's not what the flavor of the moment is or whatever it is. It's real, true, honest information that she's digging for. She doesn't tell you what to think. She just suggests, you might want to check this out. She's also a holistic healer, which she's also a coach. So to be a holistic healer and a coach is such a fantastic combination because she understands, at least in my mind, my definition, the whole situation. It's not just about your work life or your personal life, because she understands they're all connected. I've had dialogues with people before about that work-life balance. Oh, you can't really have it because it's connected. Yes, it is. One's part of the other and the other's part of the other. So you have to go at it from a holistic standpoint to look at everything that's going on. So she understands energy, she understands the connections, and she understands the space within and without. She's also a mentor and coach, mom, wife, all kinds of things too to add to that. But that, at least in my mind, is part of why I asked you to be my guest today.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, I feel like sometimes, we all wear so many hats, and at the same time, we're just us showing up in life and doing the best that we can. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation and hope to bring some good insights. And like you said, I'm never here to tell you what to do. I'm a big believer that only you can tell you what to do.
Right.
So I extend an invitation just to reflect on life from a different perspective, to experiment with it, try it out for yourself, and you'll know if it's for you or not. And everything that we'll be talking about today, everything that I talk about anywhere that you see me talking, they aren't just concepts that I read in a book and am passing along. They are concepts that I pulled from various different sources throughout the past 14 plus years that I've been on this holistic healing journey, and have incorporated into my life. So what I bring to you is the perspective that I have found through integrating these different concepts. And the integration part is really where the magic happens, because we can carry around a bunch of really great concepts. We can pass them around to people. We can throw them at other people. But until we fully integrate them into our life, that's when we're going to see the changes and really benefit and be able to experience what those concepts are pointing towards.
Totally. There's too many people that are using language, that are using things that they see or hear. Again, I talk about the superficial level. They're just throwing it at people. Like I saw something the other day that was like, you can say that, I'm going to use a cuss word here, but you can't say that shit's not real. Shit's real. So a lot of folks that, again, throw these superficial concepts. It's all an illusion. It's no, it's not. I'm going through this right now. You know what I mean? So how do we frame that? What kind of thoughts? What kind of perceptions? How can we be successful on this journey being human, right?
Yeah, Absolutely. And quite frankly, what does that mean? I think we're all of us that are drawn to this type of conversation, we've all spent time thinking about what is our purpose here? What am I supposed to be doing with
Yes.
myself? So I got really fascinated with this idea of being human. I think
Hmm.
many of us, again, that are drawn to this conversation have at least heard the suggestion that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So if in our infiniteness, we are spiritual first and we're here in this physical body having this human experience, then what does that mean, and what do we do with it here, and what does it mean to be a participant here on planet Earth? And is it as simple? Can we simplify life? That's really the focus that I've taken into my own life and offer to those that I support, is this concept of simplifying the process so that we can find this all elusive balance,
Yeah.
or at least better understand what it is, what it's not, and be able to open more receiving in our life. That more, whatever it is that it looks like
Yes.
for you, more money, more fulfillment, more enjoyment, more whatever that more is that we're seeking for, more understanding, more truth, more alignment. And this is the process that I take. So can we simplify it? Can we just take it not as genders or races? Perfect time to have these conversations, I
Right.
feel. But can we simplify it to a human experience? And can we find some commonalities
Yes,
as
please.
humans having this experience collectively together, so that we can begin to approach it from a different way? Because what we've been doing up to this point has gotten us here. But if you
Yeah.
hadn't noticed, we're dealing with a new world right now. It has shifted, it is
Yes.
shifting our
Yes.
physical landscape. I've got all the chills just saying this, but
Yeah.
our physical landscape is changing, our
Hmm.
societal landscape is changing. What has happened so far in 2020, which I keep calling the great clarifier on this American evolution that we have going underway.
But it's not
We
only American, right?
it really isn't. It is
It's
a
all
human,
throughout.
it's a human evolution, I believe. And again,
It
I just
is.
invite you to step into this perspective and explore it while we're having this conversation, and then take it back into your life and put that filter on for a bit and see how life starts to look when you look through this lens. Because if we can simplify it down to a human experience and we can find some commonalities there, then maybe we can start our conversations with what we have in common instead of
Yes.
where we have conflict, and be able to realize that, wow, in the end, a lot of us are saying and fighting and striving for the same thing.
That's right. And we also need to drop our fear, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was thinking about this just earlier today. We are always, I think it was one of those 11-year ago memories that popped up on Facebook
Yep.
of some quote that touched me 11 years ago that was about how it's not about moving forward free of fear. It's just moving
Right.
forward because what you are going after is, you've decided it's more important than your fear. So I
Yes.
had this thought as I was resharing that, show up bigger than your fears. I had this thought, there's always going to be something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
There will
You know,
always be something that you can be afraid of.
but
You can't.
there's a
Mhm.
thing, and I've been working for quite some time to rid myself of my fear, and there's so many of them, right? And the fear of going against social convention, all kinds of things, right? And so the real point is to utilize the energy of the fear, because fear is really originally to keep us safe, right?
Yes.
But we've used it to put ourselves in a box and stay in a box, is what we've done. And it's not safe in the box anymore. Hello. So, but to use the inner to recognize when fear comes, to recognize, is there a danger? What is going on here? And then to work with those energies, I think, to channel those energies. As I was saying before, I felt a lot of yang energy today because I was wanting to get a little combative, and I'm like, okay, but how can I use those energies in a constructive way?
Absolutely.
Because we all feel them.
Mhm. For certain. And I love that you bring up energy, because I think that that's part of what's being asked of us.
Yes.
What's being asked of
Yes.
us is to move beyond our 5 physical main senses. And this
Yes.
is where, part of like, how do we get into this situation that we've become such a mess in society? We have lost sight of the humanity in our fellow humans that we're cohabitating with. We are trading up one exterior judgment for another exterior judgment.
Yes,
we are misunderstanding the words that people are choosing to use. And in fact, we are in such a quagmire. I've never used that word, but we are in such a quagmire right now that people are watching the same event unfold. They're listening to the same words come out of somebody's mouth, and they're having completely different experiences. They're hearing completely different intentions and messages that are coming through that. So then again, we get into a mess if we're even seeing and witnessing and hearing and cognating in a lot and like that. Yes. And we're all getting different messages. Then obviously we're seeing the crux of that. We're seeing the influx of, you can't control what storyline is being put out there, and you can't control what storyline is being put out there to contradict it. Right. And then you can't decide or know which one's the truth. And there's plenty of evidence and facts that backs up both sides. And what's interesting is that we can take that was just said, we can plop that over into several different arenas right now. 100%. So I'm obviously not just talking towards one particular situation. This is just what's happening.
It's universal, like you said. It's where we're at in the cycle of the way things work. But I think, and this is one of my true core beliefs, that part of chaos, part of distrust, part of humans not trusting humans actually comes from a good source, but we don't ever recognize it. And a lot of times we don't call that elephant out in the room, is not being honest. First of all, not being honest with yourself, and then not being honest with each other. How many people have fed so much crap down the line? If we would just be honest and let the people fall where they fall, so you can find your real soul tribe. If you're finally honest, you can find which country you need to live in. You can find which state you need to live in. If people were actually honest, drop that veil, drop that wall. And the wall comes from fear. I mean, we know dishonesty comes from fear, doesn't it?
And let's talk about dishonesty. Let's talk about the lies that are out there, because if we are standing here as a people on top of this society saying it's time for truth, let's drop our mask, let's just be honest, let's just be real and unfiltered.
No pun intended. Just kidding.
Exactly. Pun intended, pun not intended. So if we are standing here saying let's do this, we cannot do that without taking that bigger lens and realizing that even the foundation that we're building upon is a lie and is not the full story. So how can we be able to decipher what is truth and what is real and what is honest whenever we're standing on a foundation of mistruths, half-truths, non-truths, and straight up deceptions and lies. So what's so interesting is that because we're energetic beings, because we're all connected in this experience, we cannot be amongst those lies, whether we consciously realize them or not, without empathing them, without intuiting them, without being aware. I mean, how can you trust even your closest partner, family members, or loved ones, when we have this underlying like murmur, this like radio frequency that we're not always fully tuned in on, but that doesn't mean it's not shooting past us in the airwaves
or through us.
Exactly. We're energetic beings, and we are tapped into the energy of this planet, of this earth, of this human collective human experience. So the fact that we don't even have that at the forefront of our education, the beginning of our life that we're building up, it's kind of stacked against us, because no matter how true and honest the person before you is being, those slippery little lies that we're not addressing or we're not taking into perspective are going to cause interference, and you're going to get a staticky signal, and your perception is going to be on by saying something's off here, but you're going to be misperceiving because you're going to be blaming the person that's in front of you. And that's where we get into this slippery slope of basing things on how they appear, which is a very patriarchal way of doing things, because the masculine is the physical world, And the non-physical world, that's what is behind and driving and making manifest this physical world. That is the feminine, the divine feminine that's behind it. So this isn't, again, we want to, it's so easy, especially as women, we've been very well conditioned to stand up and say, no more with the patriarchal system that we have going on. But I'm not here to say that. I'm here to say it's not about demolish.
It's about
not
balance.
It's about recognition and understanding. When you see that fuller perspective, when I take in that fuller perspective, then I can get a better understanding of what energy needs to be brought in, that needs to be recognized. So if the physical is overwhelming, and I'm saying this to everybody listening right now, no matter what the situation, if the physical is overwhelming, balance that out by bringing in that divine feminine. And by that, I mean what is not being represented by the physical. We can take something that's very current day, because I think this is very relatable. And I feel that this situation that's very current right now is the Black Lives Matter movement. And just saying the words Black Lives Matter. From my experience, every single human that I've come into contact with agrees that Black lives matter. Where I see people getting into a kerfuffle over it is when they don't realize that Black lives matter does not take away from, negate, step on, take over anybody else mattering.
Right.
It's just a separate conversation. So if we can within ourselves realize, oh, that doesn't take away from any other lives mattering, then yes, we can fully get behind the words Black Lives Matter. And when we're having this little agitation, that's a perfect example. We have the physical masculine expression of Black Lives Matter, the words, we're just pulling them up in the feminine way, but pretending like it's the masculine way right now. When we come into contact with them, when we run into them in the physical world, right? This is what can get triggered within us.
Right.
So when we can understand what we're reacting to is not what we're seeing, it's what we're not seeing. It's not what we're hearing, it's what we're not hearing.
Oh, gosh.
Then we can understand what our true separation is and where it is that we need to get back fully reconciled. So you don't have to control what other people say and do. You just have to be aware that anytime that there's that imbalance, you have the ability to pull from the feminine, that unseen world, what's missing from this equation, what more needs to be added, what's not being represented, so that it can be balanced. And maybe this is a process that just happens internally. Maybe it's something that you express externally. No right or wrong to this stuff, which is also pretty awesome, but nobody's bothered to tell us that. So we're all scared to get it wrong because we don't want to get the wrong results on the other side. And when you realize that we're living, or could potentially be living, in a totally different process than that, a completely different game than that, you can play by a different set of rules, have a different experience. And it's one that I find to be very liberating, because I can set down my need, or continue to get into check my need and desire to want to control everybody and everything and have everything go exactly my way. And I can instead take a deep breath, settle back a little bit, and begin to understand what it is inside of me that's reacting to whatever it is that I'm witnessing. And I feel like I talked a lot, so I'm going to be silent for a moment.
You said so much in that, but I want to go back to, there's Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Mark.
Hey, how y'all doing? I was enjoying the conversation on the backstage and everything, and I was actually hearing so much of what Crissy was saying and agreeing and all of that, even though I sometimes think that we do need to change some of the institutional paradigm as well. I know y'all said y'all didn't want to tear down the institutions, but I think about like schools and churches, and so often they are patriarchal, and they oftentimes don't bring in the feminine part of our society. And actually, I am one of those people that do believe that we do have both, no matter whether you're a man or a woman, both feminine energy and masculine energy. But I think that too much of our society spends too much time on the patriarchal and masculine side of things. But so I was going to bring that to Crissy's attention, that I definitely agree with her. But I also wonder, and I was going to ask Crissy this, I find so many people I know here in the African American community, we oftentimes talk about the way that we code our language and things of that nature. So you're actually speaking to people depending on where you're at. So like if you're in the hood with your friends and everything, you might speak one way. And if you're like in the corporate world, you're going to try to speak that more corporate kind of lingo and things of that nature. So it seems like we wear a lot of masks in society. And I did intend to pun intentionally that time and everything. So how do we unmask the fact that we know that we've got these masks on if we're trying to be as legitimate as possible? Because it sounds like you do a very good job of doing that, but so many of us go in from, maybe not so much now because a lot of the corporate world is in our homes, but in the past, before COVID, we would go from, say, the COVID world to the academic world to the world of the playground if you're playing pickup games of basketball or whatever. So that the coding can change a lot in that. And I know that even in the work that you probably do, you see folks that are always changing their demeanor depending on what situation they're in. So how do you talk to them when you know that they're coming at it from different perspectives?
Yeah, such great questions that you bring to the table. And I'm going to touch, I hope, on all of them. So I'm going to first say I totally agree with you that I feel that our society could definitely benefit from some balancing and bringing more of that feminine aspect to our institutions, to our schools, to our religious institutions as well, for certain. What I also want to say to that is that if we begin to build them, and when we do build them without addressing this societal underlying foundation, then again, we fall into that same thing where we're just kind of masking over a situation instead of really allowing it to open up fully. And part of me always comes back to the argument that what if that's not what we're here to do, to set everything right? What if this is the place that our souls come to evolve through the human experience by witnessing and experiencing chaos and conflict and disarray and injustice? So are we here to make it all perfect? Or would that have happened by now? Because we've had some really amazing leaders that, got these thoughts started long before we came around. And there was a part even in my own journey, thank you 2020 for bringing so much clarity my way, where I realized there's a part of me that really wants to save the whole world. And a part of me is realizing, what if that's not what I'm here for? What if that's not what we're here for? What if what we're here for is to learn how to save ourselves, but not in the way of fear and something's out to get us in self-preservation, but what if it's in a way that brings us back to the fact that, or the consideration again, that what if there's nothing really to fear, and what if we are always safe? So if there is nothing to fear and we are always safe, can we make that phone call to our kids' school that says, hey, I'm not trying to be that disruptive parent, but I'm also not trying to just send my kid into a situation that I'm not fully aligned with. So what are our options here? And is it as simple as just starting a conversation? Is it as simple as realizing, okay, we do use different words at different places depending on where we're at. So instead of getting so caught up in the tone of voice, the choice of words, the body language and expression, all things that we are taught as humans to interpret and that they mean a certain thing, what if they don't? Because I remember the first time that I was the only white girl in an African-American predominant section. I was doing a very expanded talk to a very limited resourced community. And I caused quite a disruption with my words and my youth and my whiteness coming in with these very light ideas. It's very easy to think, I don't know struggle or hardship or what you've been through or what you've experienced. And what I thought was a disruption in a not good way turned out to be, I actually just gained the respect of every person that was in the room. But I'd not been in a situation where people express themselves in that manner. So I had to learn to look beyond the choice of words and to get to the heart of what's going on. So if I come in love and light and you hit me with something that seems like you're challenging me or offended by what I say, I have a choice. I can either reassert myself and grab onto those masculines. Right. I can do the total feminine and, bow back and say, I'm sorry. And, kind of covet my light a little bit or damper it some. Or I can lean in knowing that it's very safe and say, I come here with compassion in my heart and I seem to have caused a disruption. Can you help me to understand what you're experiencing of the words that I just said? Can you help me to understand what experience you've had that makes you feel differently? Because what I find is that when I stop pushing my side of things and I open up to better understand why
Yes.
somebody's saying and
Yes.
reacting the way that they are, a lot of times we find common ground pretty quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
So thankfully, I've had that experience where I've been exposed to different cultures. I've been in different situations where I've seen people react in different ways. So I've just learned to develop beyond what I'm seeing. But if that's all that we have to compare it to are the images that we've been shown, and we're having a conversation about how you're reacting to me and not a conversation about what images you saw presented to you that looked like me before we met, then again, we're only scratching the surface and we're not getting to the underlying issue. And if society isn't stepping up and taking responsibility for their share of images that get placed before us that have nothing to do with our direct experience, and we are not talking about that, I feel like we're having the wrong conversation, because I feel like that has to be addressed as well if we're ever going to get to the place that we already are, but we're not allowing ourselves to receive it because we're so busy battling each other over who's right and who was wrong in the past that we fail to realize if we just all show up in this moment committed to what it is that we say we're fighting for, all the fighting would just stop. I mean, maybe I'm short-sighted in that. Maybe that's too simplistic. I hear not to be so simple with these big complex things, but
I think part of the problem, is people are so wrapped up. You talk about what we're used to, what we're conditioned to. I love the fact when you first talked about the patriarchy, you were like, I'm not going to repeat that same old patriarchy's got to go. So I just love that, because it's not. We have to have the balance. The energies have to be in balance, the masculine and feminine. But we also have to lean in. And I agree with Mark that our institutions, I was in corporate America for the most part, and it was such a patriarchy, and it does need to change because not everyone is welcome there and not every voice is welcome there. And getting down to my point here is there's so many people I felt before that people are wrapped up in their egos, right? And that's what really creates the walls and creates the, it's about me, not you. What are you going to do for me? And the whole, we need to drop that whole thing. It's what I'm here for you to do. But the egos and the lies, so I'm starting to see a connection between what you're saying about the previous perceptions, the lenses, the curtains, whatever it is, and the egos, right? It's like almost a chicken and the egg thing for me right at this moment.
And now in 2020, we've gotten to this point where the egos and the spiritual world have collided. So perhaps this has always been going on, but now we're all more aware of it because of our connectedness. And what has happened, especially with this, I feel like a lot of things are kind of used against us. So I think that a lot of the tools that are here that can easily empower us have also been flipped around to disempower us, which is why words are so tricky, because the words that we use to talk about anything from God to witches to freedom to, any of these
democracy.
Words, they get these stereotypes and these stigmas that get wrapped around them when there's so much more to all of those things.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So
I just had this great idea based on this conversation and everything, and I just want to hear what y'all think about this. But it seems to me that part of what we're saying is that a lot of the things that we learn, unfortunately, are learned at a very early age, these kind of stereotypes, these kind of biases, these kind of things of that nature. So maybe we as adults should go back to kindergarten, because I think that a lot of times the kindergarten kids have it right, because a lot of those divisions that we're talking about, whether that's gender bias, whether that's race bias, whether that's Democrat versus Republican, whatever the biases are, or even orientation biases, most kids that I know that are under 5 don't really have those biases. They just want to be in the same playing with the kids.
You're right. You're totally right. But I also got to say, I got to shout out for Generation Z. And I don't know, Mark, you've probably heard me talking about Generation Z, and I don't want to put the pressure on them, but it's like they're the ones that are going to lead this through us. The rainbow children, the indigo children, the people that they don't care. They don't care they don't care about your sexual orientation. They don't care about your color. Half the time they don't really care about what you're wearing, what your color, what your hair. They don't care.
Mm-mm.
What they care about, and this is what I'm seeing with my son and his friends, they care about what the truth is, in all honesty, and they are digging for the truth. My son calls bullshit on me every day, at least once a day. He's already called it out on me twice today. But because he educates himself, he looks for, I'm like, there are no objective websites. He's like, oh yes, there are. Here's a ton of, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So they have, for a while you're like, oh, they're always on their phones. Who was it? Mark, it might have even been you that said, but they might be walking into street lamps, but they're learning something, on their phone. So I think they too, we can look to them also, because for me as a parent, it gave me so many chances to explore the social convention that I was under. He's like, you're just telling me to do that because that's what you were told to do.
Absolutely. I have heard for a very long time that, this next generation is lazy and they're spoiled and they want everything instantaneous. And I'm like, no, they just know better. We raised them better. They know that they didn't come here to do some monotonous, passionless work. I have a whole soapbox that I can stand on about passionless employment and how it's the detriment of our society. And I can also stand on another soapbox about how entrepreneurship and business ownership is our inherent birthright, because we came here to make a difference. And if we all focus on helping each other with what it is that we feel called towards, I really believe it would all come together. Again, maybe I'm just too simple-minded, but
you're right.
I think it's worth at least a shot to explore
yes, it is.
because I know that when I get lined up to what turns me on, what I'm passionate about, you can't stop me from doing the work. You can't stop me from studying it, researching it, diving into it, jumping through hoops that I got to jump through in order to get to where I want to go. But you put me down in front of something that I have no interest in understanding, or perhaps just didn't come here to do. There's not enough motivation dangling that you can do to get me going. And I think that's what we're running into. And I think that's, again, how language has been flipped around and can mean so many different things. This entire high vibe movement, I feel, has hijacked the spiritual evolution that we are really underway. And it's given us a spiritual bypass. I hear this commonly said, where we're looking for these shifts in our physical world by removing the toxic people, or by, keeping yourself surrounded by high vibe people, without ever giving the courtesy to the fact that you are always high vibe just by your very existence. And there's only higher or low vibe thoughts and energies that you can get entrained into. And if you're having a low vibe experience, guess what, baby? That's the personal part, the part that you're feeling. Because like we said, this is universal stuff that's going on right now. So what's happening, that's chaos, that's conflict, even if it's what's happening right in front of your face to you in your direction, that is universal. That is the universal display of the energy that we are purging out of and moving into a different space. So as it unfolds in front of you, it looks personal because you are personally taking it in through your five senses, but it's not personal. That's universal. What's personal is what comes up inside of you. So if you experience somebody else as toxic, maybe their choice of words, their display and movement of their physical body, their tone of voice, the language that they're using is being misinterpreted by you because they don't know how to represent it better, because we're lacking examples of that in our society. And there's not a lot of talk around, support around, or examples of emotional maturity and taking responsibility for your own energy.
You're on a roll.
Crissy's on a good roll. I like this roll. Just a quick question, and you actually brought it up earlier, is so many folks get into, and I'll admit it, I've even been guilty of it as well. I'm glad you brought it up, Crissy. But what do you say to folks that actually go into toxic jobs, know that they're toxic jobs, but don't know how to get out of it? Because I find that a lot of folks are in jobs that they really don't want to be in, but they feel that they've got to survive. Because a lot of times we get in survival mode, so that's why they go to work. But I can't tell you how many times, like I said, I've been guilty of it in jobs that I've held. I've got friends that are always complaining. One that just recently lost her job and is somewhat glad that she lost her job. But the whole time that we were talking, she was always complaining about the nature of the job and how toxic it was. So what do you talk to when you talk to your friends and your people in your field and everything that you realize are in toxic environments? So I think that the toxic environments is a very big issue. And how do we deal with it, Crissy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question. I think it's a real issue. I think that it's a plague on our society, like a real one.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and
So tell us what you think.
I would say, with all due respect to whoever is feeling that way or having that experience, that you simply don't know who you are. Because if you knew who you were, then you would know that it's safe not to compromise yourself.
Right.
And it's a detriment. I mean, a lot of people look to, I've seen a lot of chatter as the economy has been shut down over these last 7 months to varying degrees throughout our country. I've seen chatter of those who want to reopen being accused of only caring about money and not caring about people. And what's interesting to me is that the chatter of people who are ready to reopen are typically people like me that are small business owners that count on continual business happening in order to continue to live our life.
Right.
And I don't know any of us that are interested in just reopening to take anybody's money. I think that the majority of us see the need and the gap that's being left open, not only financially in our own lives, but out there in society, depending on what it is that we give outwardly. So let me pull myself back around to what I'm saying with this.
Well, can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
But to add to that, what you said about wanting to open our doors, right? You know, I'm a small business owner. I teach Tai Chi. I teach Qigong. I give Reiki treatments. I had somebody come over yesterday for first class, and I think she cried for the first 10 minutes. And when we got to the heart of it, it was because she missed the connections with people. I mean, she had some things going on in her life, but what it really was a connection. So what I find is small business owners, we care about the connection. That's why we went into business in the first place, really. Yeah. And whatever our purpose is how we connect. But we want to. I've done business with so many small business owners now, and they care about my business. Amazon never calls and says, hey, they might send you an email, but they actually call and want things to work out, not just for them, but for you. They really care. That's why they're in business. Now, there's some people just for the money, but sometimes you can sniff it out, sometimes you can't. But I totally agree with the small business owners, and we're not open let's face it, most of us, we're not in it for the profit. Yeah. Especially if you put holistic word in your label anywhere, you're not in it for the profit.
And what's interesting too is that 54% of our economy is driven from small businesses, and we actually are the highest employing rate. We are the job force. We supply the highest percentage level of jobs that are out there for the American workforce. And when you think about it, it makes sense, because it's not me or you necessarily that's outsourcing to other countries to pay a lesser fee.
Not at all.
It's not me or you that are doing anything other than offering viable employment for people. Right. So, and who are we hiring? The people in our neighborhoods. We're hiring the people that we connect with,
Yes.
So when you look at that, then you also see how it's the big corporations that are asking people to come in and work more hours than what they're going to pay for a lower price than what they really can live off of. And it's that individual who says, well, how much are you going to give me for it? And then I'll let you know if I can do it or not. I mean, that's basically what you do whenever you take a job that you're not totally passionate about. You're saying, what do I need to do? What am I willing to do? And how much are they willing to pay me for? And then you compromise. You decide what you're willing to do for what amount and what you're not willing to do for what amount. And because this is so ingrained into our society, a lot of us get trapped into it in a very noble way, in a way that we're pursuing what we feel is the right path without realizing that all along we're compromising ourselves, not just our energy that we're able to bring to our families, because those toxic environments, they suck up your entire bandwidth. And then once you're around those safe places, you are sloppy with those people that are around you, because you've spent so much time holding it all together, not expressing your truth, not being able to express your passion. And suppressed passion gets expressed as anger. So if we can stop looking at everybody like they're angry, and especially if we can look at certain communities, certain sectors, certain people that are standing up right now, and realize that what that anger is expressed is a sign, a symptom of suppressed passion. So if you can look at someone who is diving in and trying to eat you up in a conversation. This happens quite a bit on social media lately.
Doesn't it though?
And I post something and somebody decides to jump on me that way, I recognize the fact that they're obviously very passionate. I mean, when else do you compromise your own integrity and set aside your moral character to get a message across than when you care very deeply about something? So if we can recognize the fact that all this clashing is coming from a same line of caring about, ironically, the same things, then we can start to have a completely different conversation. Then you can move from being a victim of your circumstances. I work with people in their relationship, and it's something that I still work in my relationship, to take our relationship to the next level, to use more effective communication, to move out of this place of you need to change who you are in order to not disrupt my world, and to get into a place where we can be our most authentic, express self. And to realize too that your most authentic expressed self isn't a lazy, inconsiderate asshole. So stop being one and stop getting upset if your partner calls you out on it, because those you love need to be able to criticize you, because they wouldn't say it if they didn't care. There's plenty of people not telling you that you're a lazy, inconsiderate asshole. There's plenty of people out there that are just tucking that away and excusing all your other niceties. And you need people who can say these things to you, and you need to be able to listen without taking it as a personal attack. And you need to be able to know the difference when you're explaining yourself and when you're defending yourself. And right now, a lot of us are defending ourselves when we're not even the ones that are under attack. And because a lot has been projected outward and blame has been cast, and I think a lot of the attention has been taken off the real root of the problem, we're all out here fighting amongst ourselves when the people who are financially benefiting from all of this chaos and disarray sit back, collect their money, and let us go at each other, to the point that they don't even bother to filter out or fact check that kind of information. You can still find it all over the internet, how all of this is interconnected, because they know we're so caught up in fighting each other that we don't even understand that we're undergoing the biggest pharmaceutical sales pitch we've ever witnessed as a collective people. We don't realize how deeply this advertising and marketing has seeped into our way of being. We don't realize that we only react to our firsthand experiences, or those that are fed to us, and the ones that are being fed to us are the toxic stuff that we need to eliminate out of our life. And we're taking all of that pseudo experience and we're projecting it massively across everybody who doesn't look or act the way that we think they need to be. Meanwhile, it's keeping us from realizing that all that stuff that they trigger within us is the key to our own healing, so that we can find the peace that we see them acting differently will bring to us.
Good. Crissy, I was wondering, how do you deal with, and I've talked to Tish about this before in conversations just in my own life with friends of mine and others, but I do know that, like I said, I'll even admit to when I've been guilty of things and everything, but sometimes you don't feel like talking to folks because of, if you say something to them, you're going to cause them to have a dislike or something of you. So I think that there's like this fear of rejection. So there's like a fear of rejection that exists in many of us. So like, you might want to honestly tell somebody that you don't think that the situation, whether it's a job situation or a personal situation, is going to go in the same direction that they are either hoping it's going to go in, or that it's going to, that's their vision of it going in, because you don't want to hurt their feelings, because you don't want to like have them reject you as well. So when you're talking to your clients, how do you deal with that? Because I find that happens often in society, is that folks won't say the honesty of what they want to say because they're afraid of the hurt that it might cause to the other individual. So they kind of like project what the reaction is going to be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's like one of the main ways I work with a lot of people to help them to open up their receiving, because I find that a lot of entrepreneurs, especially that are drawn to, again, these conversations and that are more in the healing arts realm, more so than, the I don't know, more technical side of things, that a lot of us are kind of like, where's going with this? Hold on. We care a lot about what other people think, and we don't want to ruffle any feathers, and we really, really want to be liked. When it comes to a situation in which you do need to be upfront with someone, I always recommend and utilize for myself starting out with recognizing the other person. And what happens when you recognize the other person, not only does it give them like a verbal okayness to kind of put their defenses down and that you come in peace, it helps me to reconnect to the more of that person than that one thing that is sticking out that I want to make a comment on. So especially like if you're in a partnership, like I'm 12, we just had our 12-year wedding anniversary. We've been in a relationship for 18 and a half years. I've never been in an 18 and a half year long relationship before. So this is all new, uncharted territory, but we show up like we are supposed to already have it all figured out, right? So we can get caught in the always and never statements. You always leave stuff laying around. You never have my back, right? Whatever those things are. That's just silly. Of course, you don't always leave stuff laying around. And of course, I don't always never have your back. Like, that's silly. But it's how you feel in that moment, right? So I feel like every time this subject comes up, this person just doesn't want to face the truth of the situation, or I feel like they don't hear what I have to say. So it's probably not because you're not talking. It's probably because what you're saying is going through their filter, and they're only going to filter through that which they're ready to deal with. If they're not ready to deal with it, they can't hear the rest. It's a really beautiful universal design that you don't have to worry about. You know, life just takes care of itself. It's really cool that way. But we got to remember that, or else we're going to try to force our way in those moments, right? Yes. So start by recognizing them. It gets you connected to their wholeness. It reminds them of their wholeness. So perhaps I would say, I know you. I feel like after 18 and a half years of being together, I know what kind of person you are. I know your level of integrity. I know you know the difference between right and wrong. I know that you are a caring, compassionate, amazing person. Facts, right? Mm-hmm. Who's really going to argue that at that point? They're like, well, thank you. you know, I try, right?
Right.
These are all facts, and it needs to be sincere. So pull things that are true. And sometimes you might need to get the ball rolling to get back connected to the fact that, oh yeah, this is true. I forgot about all these great things about this person, but these are true. So being that integrity-filled person who definitely knows the difference between right and wrong, would you say how you just spoke to me, would you say that that's the right way to talk to somebody?
Yeah, no, that's not the right way at all. So definitely you should be more forthright and things of that nature. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So when you can do that, recognize that other person and then ask them to help you understand their logic.
Yeah.
Despite how it may seem, we are not running around with a bunch of dummies. We're not. We're not. We are running around with a bunch of spiritual beings having a human experience that believes everything that they've experienced is the fullness of their life until you realize there's something more. We, in this conversation, have tapped into the fact that there's something more. And we are refusing to get off that path until we find that dang old more that is meant to be ours.
That's right.
Not everybody has that calling, and we have to honor where they're at in their path. But we're going to have characters like that show up in our path in order to guide us to the more. Because if we're stumbling over what people look like, what they sound like, and we can't move beyond it to evolve the way that we communicate, then what we're doing is skirting our issues and projecting them out on them. And that's why I don't like this whole toxic relationship, get the toxic people out of your life. I'm more about the toxic relation shift.
Inside,
so that you can shift into seeing that the toxicity, it's in you. It comes up whenever they show up and they just are them. So you can remove all the rascals from your world, but until you deal with what those rascals bring up inside of you, you're always going to have that laying dormant inside of you.
Yes.
So not that I ask for rascals in my world, but Lord knows they find me.
Yes.
I welcome them more now because now I'm really curious as to, wow, boy, why did I care so much about what that person had to say?
There are lessons.
What is it that I think I'm going to gain or lose from what they had to say? How is it that they could be misperceiving me? How could I better represent myself? How can I better understand where they're coming from so I can know what experience they had in order to understand where they misperceive me, instead of me taking all my time and all my energy explaining myself, which one they likely never asked me to do in the first place. Two, I'm probably only doing to satisfy my own
Yes.
ego.
Yes. 100%.
Right?
Yes.
And three is never going to lead me to understanding where they're coming from. So I just encourage you to start with recognizing them. Ask them to help you better understand them instead of you trying to get them to understand you, and pay attention to if they ask for you to explain yourself. Did they ask to better know you? Then you don't need to explain it. And it might be awkward or weird letting someone go on without them verbalizing your validity. But after a while, you learn how to self-validate. And it doesn't matter what hateful spews come out of somebody's mouth in your face with their finger pointed at you, because you know who you are. So why are you going to argue with this fool? There's no point in it at all, because they are obviously drunk and intoxicated on these emotions that are polluting them to misperceive your wonderfulness. And no amount of fighting them is going to convince them of your awesomeness. And that is a subtle line, because it might look on the outside like being passive, but there's a big difference between knowing your wholeness and being somebody's doormat. There's a big energetic difference. And what if life's waiting for you to own that within yourself in order for these rascals to find somewhere else to go play? If they truly are energy vampires, I think these things are so funny, because I just think it's all connected, and that we can't see or perceive in another that which is within us. So you experience them as an energy vampire, they experience themselves as a Sunday afternoon. It doesn't really matter. It's all about how you perceive them. So until you clear that up, you're going to keep falling into these pitfalls. People are always going to think I'm right, they're wrong. That's where divorces come into play. That's where, all the estranged relationships and friendships and family members. What if we're all saying and fighting for the same thing, and it's just the things that aren't being said? You can be the one to bring them up, again, maybe just internally to yourself as your own reminder, maybe externally because the person you're dealing with needs to remember. I know that when I'm dealing with someone who has fallen out of their wholeness, I anchor myself back into their wholeness. I remind them of their wholeness, and then I let them decide who they're going to be. And 100% of the time, the person chooses to be in integrity, or they choose to get away from me.
It takes care of it. So let me come back to something that you said that I think is so valuable right now about being human, especially in 2020. So the real plague of complacency. The real plague of comfort, right?
The illusions.
And that's what I think you're totally right. 2020 is pulling that. Are you really comfortable? Are things really, that 25 years, you got a pension, you'll get $200 a week, good for you, or whatever it is. Is that really worth it? And then I have friends on the other hand, like I've got one friend in particular, he's worked at the place 30 years, absolutely hates it, but he's going to stay because his retirement, there's something about his pension or something. And I know he does it for the benefits and he does it for the money. And there's hundreds, thousands of maybe even millions of people in the same boat, right? And I've done it too, where I have not been healthy, right? It was almost like my soul's going backwards, but you try to use it as an experience. Just like you said, this place really sucks, but I'm going to try to learn about myself, learn why I'm here. But the real plague of complacency and comfort, just what you were saying, Mark, about not being able to tell somebody what you really need to tell them. The real plague of not being able to be honest with yourself and with the people you love and the people around you. How many times have you been in public and somebody says some bonehead damn response, and you look around the room and you can see everybody totally agrees that's bonehead, but nobody comes up and says any damn thing. And if you do say something, I hate to say it, but if you're not part of the boys club, then maybe you're going to have to find a different table. But the real plague of complacency and comfort in our society, let's address that.
Yeah. So we have to evolve our ability to communicate. And part of that comes with our ability to communicate with ourselves. And we tell ourselves a lot of excuses and compromises and half-truths. And we negotiate. We negotiate with our future self, who's going to have more energy, more time, more enthusiasm, more inspiration.
You're going to be able to do it.
You negotiate with your future self to wake up early and exercise. You negotiate with your future self to eat better tomorrow. You negotiate with your future self to start it on Monday.
Yeah, baby.
And that's where the disconnect starts. the miscommunication starts with ourselves because we don't have the relationship with ourselves in a clear spot. And when we get our relationship with ourselves in a better spot, when we can understand that this is an inside job, that we are here having this individual experience, that we came for our soul's evolution, that this isn't about figuring out who you are and then reveling down into it, but instead figuring out who you think you are, getting back in touch with who you actually are, and then surrendering this physical self to be a servant to the soul self, to sign up for its job to physically represent all that, everything that you are compact into this human body. That's what this vessel is for. So we have to change that conversation with ourselves before we're ever going to stand up and change that conversation externally. And for any of us that are compromising ourselves for a relationship, for a financial situation, for benefits, for whatever that thing is, we are just cutting ourselves off from receiving from in a different form everything that it is that we think we're getting from this compromise spot, and maybe even more than that. And what that comes from is this belief that you are more or less if you have that. So as long as you're not in touch with your value, your innate value, which is ever present, ever, never changing, it is always constant. There is nothing that can be added to you or taken away from you that can ever change your value. You are the hot commodity. You are the one that is everywhere that you go in your world. You are the clue to all of this. You are the one who has the ability to do everything. It's all in your hands. It's not in your hands to line up all these rascals and get them to play by the rules. That's not your job. It's not your job. But as long as you think that your value can be increased, it's a lie that we were sold. It's a lie that we build our foundations on. It's a lie that gets us going through all this.
Right.
That our value is inherent. One, this is why I love women, and I love empowered women, and I love women to utilize all their wholeness. I also feel that men have been given a massive disservice in our society by not being given the emotional tools in order to, and permission to be able to, and example
100%.
to be able to feel and express emotions in a healthy, balanced, transformative way. So because of your suppression of the men of the world, the women of the world thereby get suppressed in the process as well. So as long as we're trying to liberate women, and we're not even talking about the toxic stuff that's happened with our men, we are, again, just scratching the surface. We're not truly balancing the energy. We're trying to change things in the physical to get a different experience in the non-physical, right? What happens inside of us. Oh, I so go all over the place, but I do try to bring it all back home again.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah,
I'm totally with it. But I was thinking about what you were saying, because I was thinking about a friend of mine, and we have this interesting conversation all the time because we talk about the entrepreneur world. I know that both of y'all are in the entrepreneur world and things of that nature. And one of the things that we always conversate about is the fact of folks that want to get knowledge from you, and they don't necessarily want to give anything back to you. So what my friend Ray calls it is the brain drain, which is another form of an energy and a drain and everything, because he's talking about how a lot of times folks will try to get you to be engaged, share your knowledge, share your experience and things of that nature. And of course, you want some sort of compensation of some sort or another, but you don't get that. And so that's what my friend Ray Pascal calls the brain drain. And he thinks that too many folks fall in that in the entrepreneurial world. So Crissy, you're our guest. Do you find that folks oftentimes try to get you into that brain drain kind of environment, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah. So what's interesting about the brain drain is that a lot of times, like most of these agitations in life, they're self-perpetuated. What? Yes. We think if we show our expertise, our knowledge, our wisdom, that will prove to them that we know what we're talking about, and then they'll hire us. But that's not why these rascals show up in our world. They show up in our world to help us get into check so that we can know for ourselves. And if you're locked into this perpetual overgiving, which a lot of our society is, a lot of our female entrepreneurs definitely deal with this, but I see it, it's kind of a human thing. Then we are very, very good and conditioned into giving. And there's something about our giving that begins to validate our worth. when we can see our outward doings in the world make a difference,
wow.
therefore we now have a reason to be
wow.
here. I think that's why a lot of things shift for women who haven't really found their way until they become moms. Now they have something to show, to do, a purpose
Right.
for being here. I didn't work that way. I found my purpose first, and then I was like, okay, now I got to have a kid too. Like, can't I just play in this world and stay totally selfish for forever? But no, I had to evolve my learning by becoming a mom and open up that whole door. So yes, we can get locked into this overgiving. And it's interesting because whenever we start talking about masculine and feminine, we really think about it. Like, men are by design givers and women by design are receivers.
Oh, that's interesting.
But what's interesting is that women are more likely to be blocked in their receiving, and men are more likely to demand or take instead of giving, because this can get blocked there too. It's very interesting when you look at this. So when this gets expressed outwardly and we get into the field of entrepreneurship, we can begin to associate and validate ourselves through our giving. And then when we look at men and we look at the storyline that's traditionally given for men in our society, that their value becomes that paycheck. So as long as they go to the job, they get the check, they sell their soul like every other man that came before them to compromise themselves and not chase their dreams and do the responsible thing and be a man and get that check and get those benefits and take care of those kids and that family, then that's it. Your work here is done. And the rest of it just gets sloppy whenever we get into that mindset, right?
Yes,
and then
100%.
The same with the women. We're showing up, we're the moms, we provide a lot of emotional support for our partner even before having kids, or we might not even have kids, but we're the doers, the shakers, the caretakers. We make sure that everything happens. Typically we're kind of the household manager, even if it's just two people that are in the household. But what's interesting about that is that that's all non-tangible. We don't get paid in the same way. So it causes this imbalance that happens where this man has this physical representation. I get $5,000 a month. That is my worth. Although that's silly to think that that's your worth, right? And then we got the women who are pouring themselves out, working 24 hours a day around the clock, but don't have that financial thing, that patriarchal representation, that physical masculine expression of what they've been put out there. So we get locked into this giving, always in this deficit, never making up enough, and men thinking that their job stops right there whenever that check comes through the door, and they don't have any of the emotional responsibility or household. Now, I know some things are changed and some households aren't like this, but I feel like there's still a big imbalance with this. And in part, women need to know their worth and be able to give voice to it. We need to also be able to show how there's value in the things that we do, like sweeping the floor and washing the dishes. And again, I know some men take care of this, and thank you, all those men. My husband sweeps quite a bit. We won't say anything about the dishes, but he sweeps quite a bit. So we have to give voice to these things, and we have to give recognition to these things. We have to honor our men beyond that paycheck. We have to honor ourselves beyond the lack of physical evidence that we're doing anything throughout our day, because sometimes it might look the same when you get home as whenever you left, but it's not because we weren't doing anything. So how do we bridge those gaps? How do we make up that difference? It's an inside job. It's an inside job. When that woman gets in touch with, when this woman got in touch with the value of what she brings to the table that goes beyond the finances. I mean, I still bring some money to the table too, but goes beyond that, and really anchored into it and became unapologetic for it and began to give voice to it. That's when I could say, okay, well, if you want full-time income that covers the whole entire household coming in, then I need full-time support. Like, that's my only job and that's my only responsibility. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. So we only say those words when we're in touch with our worth and we're aware of our value. And what's interesting is that when we get in touch with our worth and our value, we inherently get in touch with the other person's worth and value also. And when we honor our worth and value, we're more likely to honor the worth and value of the other individual, or at least we open the door to be able to begin to find some balance in those arenas.
Well, it's because you've taken the veil away from yourself. You've taken all of the things that you I'm going to call the bullshit that has been served and that you've swallowed, you take it away. And once you take it away, then I feel like you can see other people for who I call it a divine spark, right? Then you can start to see that spark within other people and realize that's really who they are. That's their spirit. That's their soul. Yeah. All this other stuff, even though I got irritated today because of verbiage, but that's not what's really important, right?
All the rest, anything that is not obvious, love, light, loveliness, God, express, peace, calmness, fulfillment, anything that is not that is what someone feels like they have to do in order to ensure their survival.
Okay.
It's very simply put. There's some threat that is posed. So even if it's, making it to an appointment on time, then the fear that is there is that that person's going to think I don't care, or they're going to think I'm irresponsible. And then I'm going to lose something on the other side of it, so we break our own integrity and speed to the appointment, endangering other lives, but protecting our own security. So when we can wake up beyond that, when we can see we are always safe, that what if we're always safe? What if that illusion, this is what got me to take the dive years ago before I knew nothing, take a dive into entrepreneurship, is that I realized that illusion of there not being a safety net with me going out on my own. That because I look over there and I'm like, there's nothing there to catch me. I'm just going to be jumping into the abyss. I realized that lack of safety net was equal to the illusion of a safety net under a full-time job with a full-time paycheck. Right. Because at any time they can stop writing that check.
Right.
And how many of us have been or know people who have been in situations where that check stopped? It just stopped. Right?
Yep.
So anytime.
Did not like it. So no, I know exactly what you're talking about and everything. So you're right. So many people fall into that abyss, as you just called it. But I also was thinking of a lot of times people also use certain terms in order to define themselves and to get their space and to try to tune themselves and get in touch with themselves. Because I know that there's this whole conversation that exists in the social world, and I think it exists in both the entrepreneur world and in the relationship world, which is this concept of space. Because I know a lot of times we hear people talking about that they want their own space. I've been guilty of that as well and everything. Yeah. So, Crissy, when you're talking to folks and they tell you that part of the things that's important for them is to have their own space, do you think that that's healthy? Do you think that that's something that should exist? Or do you tell them that that's BS? Or how do you talk about it when you hear folks that are defining their relationships, whether that's entrepreneurship, business relationships, school relationships, or personal relationships within the space confines?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I'm sure there's many different ways that people can use that term, like needing space. I know that I feel that space is very important and helpful in relationships and also in business endeavors, because when you're just in it, it's easy to get caught up in it. It's easy to start to think what you're feeling in that moment, how you're perceiving things in that moment is the full story. But when I take space, if I feel that I can't, if I can feel within me that what's going to come out of my mouth is not really going to represent the amazing heart that I have inside me and the love that I have for the individual that I'm about to say it to, as often as possible, as consciously as possible, that I can get into touch with that, because it doesn't always happen. I mean, hello, I'm an evolution as well. I'm plagued with the human condition, just like the rest of y'all. In the moments that I can catch myself, I will simply say, I'm going to take some space right now, because if I don't, I know that what comes out of me is not going to accurately represent me, and it's not going to treat you the way that you deserve to be treated. So I'm going to take my leave. Now, I also know people don't always talk like me, but I also believe that that's why I was put here, is to help to show a different way to have conversations. Again, maybe these conversations happen out loud. Maybe they happen inside your head. It doesn't really matter, in my opinion, because we all read energy and not words anyway.
That's right.
So
totally.
I think that's really what we're going to move into. I think we're going to move past words. We're going to get back into doing more of the, have more awareness of how much we send information telepathically. Right. Because if I am showing up and I am thinking hateful thoughts in my head, and I don't think that that's having an impact on the loved one that I'm sending those or having those hateful thoughts around, then I'm just kind of fooling myself. And when I woke up to that, when I realized, wow, it's like that saying, there aren't any, the only devils in the world are the ones running around your own heart. When I catch them in my mind, when I catch them running around, I realize, like, wow, that's not helping anything. It's only polluting my own thinking. And it's another illusion that I have fallen into, another survival safety thing that I've put into place in a world that I'm not ever, first of all, going to make it out alive of. I mean, we're not.
That's a good point.
We're not. At
Not
some
making
point,
it
we're
out
here
alive.
until we're done. We're here until we're done. And we don't know when that's going to be. And we don't know if it's going to be a virus or a car or a tree falling or a lightning strike. We don't know what it's going to be. Every year, humans are going to leave this planet. That's going to happen. No matter what is happening out there, humans are going to leave this planet because souls are going to evolve. And everybody has a part. And even the parts that get chipped away from that marble block eventually contributes to the overall masterpiece that's revealed in the end. And if we don't honor each of those chipping aways, or we don't just let them go because that was their part, and be able to see how it's contributing to this future outcome that we're working towards, then we can get very tangled up. We can get very caught up. Again, we can attach our value with that thing and where we're going. Not only is it going to be an evolution of our conversations and our communication, and this is what's being asked for, and those that are stepping into it, like us, I'll give us credit. Those that are stepping into it, that are willing to go into this dimension, because it is another dimension. It sits right here with this dimension. You can step into it at any time, but only those who are bold and courageous and full of faith will take that step. When you can step into it, you have the power to change your world, even in a world that's not going the way that you want it to. And that is what is needed. So knowing what's universal, understanding what's personal about it, being able to evolve and more accurately communicate and represent yourself, put your blinders on to what other people are doing, take them off to what you're doing, be that change that you desire to see in the world. And when you can come from this place, then you're going to step into an evolved way of being. And we're going to move past this communication. We're going to better respect each other's energy. We're going to be able to communicate in ways that are super powerful, especially in our interpersonal relationships. And there was one more place that I was going with this, but it's okay.
Well, if you're thinking about that, I was going to let you know that a very dear friend of ours who actually has the show before Tish was joining in the conversation and was making some comments. So Zach was definitely saying that you are so right, Crissy, and that empowered women are awesome. And he also expressed some care and love for you, Tish, and everything. So definitely wanted to let you know that. And then he said, you ladies are spot on. Thank you for the truth. So definitely he was letting folks know that. So while you were thinking, he was definitely sharing that he was watching and was definitely finding that y'all were telling a lot of very true statements. And I would agree with you on that as well. I was actually glancing off to the side because usually, this is just me having a little bit of a comical moment here and everything. Usually I'm much better than with the dishes than apparently your husband is, but right now they're a little stacked up. I need to go take care of them. That might be one of the things that I do after I'm done producing the show, because I was looking over there and I was going like, I think I need to go do the dishes, because usually I'm one of those men that like the flow of dishwater and like that actual old-fashioned way of doing the dishes. But then again, I'm a little weird because I also like the sound of a washing machine. So like I said, I'm not the average kind of guy and everything. So definitely I might have to go over there and try to tackle those dishes, because I'm looking at them going like, yep, need to go take care of those at some point.
Well, you are wonderful for perceiving that, and bring it into your awareness for sure, and see where it leads you. Is that a better representation? It might not be what you want to do, but does it better represent who you are and your character? And when you get more committed, I'm totally committed to doing what I can to up my awareness, to continue to represent myself as accurately as possible. It's why sometimes I pause before I speak. It's also why sometimes I'm kind of lengthy in my explanations, just how I'm made. And I'm learning how to refine that too. But your share, Mark, I appreciate. And I also appreciate because it brought me back around to the other thing I was going to say with evolving. We're going to evolve our communication. And then the other thing that's being asked is for us to evolve beyond finding value in our doings.
Yeah.
So that requires for us to get in touch with our innate inherent value that can never be altered. You are the star of the show. You are the reason that the sun comes up and goes down. You cannot prove that it's because of me, because you're not in my world, you're in your world. So own that and see where that leads you to. And what you'll find is that you hold value independent of your doings. So does that mean that you can stop doing, sit on the couch and everything that you want shows up? No. Why? Because I don't even know you, but I know that that's not the fullest representation of the character that you have within you. I know that's not the fullest expression that your soul came here to give, to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. I assure you that. right?
But
What are
let
you
me
going to add
address something that Mark said when he talked about toxic people, and you talked about how, there's this whole thing about clearing out toxic people, but the real fact is toxic people are in your life for a reason, and
Mhm.
basically you learn and they bring out different things. But let me say this. When you're trying to evolve and you're trying to grab that awareness, sometimes toxic people are too much.
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
really do need to step away because it's too much. It was something you talked about before.
Yeah.
We can only handle so much. Like when I
Absolutely.
was going to a counselor to try to help me be a better mom for my son, she was like, just give him one suitcase. Don't give him the whole closet full. Just give him one little thing. And as he reaches another level, then give him another one. And then, so sometimes I think we're not ready for those toxic people or the lessons that are in our
For
life,
sure. For sure.
but
I
we can
have
circle back.
I have to totally agree with you. So I do not recommend taking these philosophies and going to the biggest trigger person in your life and trying them out. That's like, trying to lose 60 pounds in one day by showing up at the gym at 5 a.m. and staying there till 5 p.m. Like that's just,
Not
it's,
gonna happen.
it's a egoical quest to shortcut and get what you want now. And let me go ahead and assure everybody, you're already on the fast track. This is as quickly as it moves along. You're light years ahead. And in fact, you're probably so far ahead, you need to stop and be still and let your energetic self fully catch up with all the evolving that you've done, because that's what ends up happening. And plus, the only thing that's happening with your path is that you're judging it. That's it. You think you should be further along. And that's only because you're an intuitive being and nobody's let you know that you're so attached to your destiny that you're sensing the future where you're going to be fine. You're just not at that point yet. So just chill out while the rest of the past gets past you and you can just be caught up with yourself. So yes, don't go to the biggest trigger to try these things out with. Start with strangers. Start with safe spaces. If you're part of safe communities, like I host a monthly women's group, anybody can join. We meet 8:30 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time online. So the first Wednesday of every month. So this coming Wednesday at the time of this recording. That's a safe space. You come to the table as an empowered woman to be reminded of how awesome you are and how you can go back out there and do it another day. So if you got those kind of spaces, and even within those kind of spaces, you find yourself holding back, lean into them and start to use them. Allow yourself to receive those safe spaces. Allow yourself to practice where it is safe. And then you can work up to where it might be a little bit more daunting. If you build this skill set, it makes it a lot easier whenever you go up against like the real ninjas that are out there in the world that are ready to take you down and not receive any compliments and not receive any kindness, the real rascals of the world.
People that are so lost. I mean, really, that's what it is. They have lost touch with their humanity. If a person can't look you in the face, in the eyeballs, and tell you how they feel, and if you insert your ego in any way, shape, or form, then you're not at the level, at least for me, then that's, because those people, and sometimes I feel the people that are sometimes I'm going to go, the people that are in charge, the politicians and whatnot, I feel so honestly so sorry I hate to say I feel so sorry for them, but almost compassionate, because I feel like they're just lost. They have no clue, and they're in so deep. Can they even get out? I like to think there's always chance. There's always, even, kind of like the Christian, even on your dying bed, you can still find the light, find the love, find salvation. But man, some people just get it so far. And then the other issue I have is the whole herd element, Crissy.
Yeah.
And how you can have someone that even everybody in the herd recognizes is not the right lead, isn't a good person. We're not going where are we going? We don't know. Oh, it looks like shit over there, but let's go. And they still follow. It's like, what in the world are you doing? Because they can't see the big picture.
Yeah.
And they're out of touch.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I agree with you. And they are here to help us to remember where our control lies and where it doesn't. And they're here to play a part that's very significant and very important as well. And those of us that are willing to engage in these conversations and that are willing to do the work and that are showing up at this time, we're really the ones with the assignment. And we have to stop projecting that assignment out to others, because quite frankly, it would just make our life a lot easier if all the rest of us could just, realize there's nothing to like defend and no reason to argue, and that we're all here for the same reasons, then it would make it lovely, but then it wouldn't be what we came here for. I was having a session with a client earlier today, and part of what came up is that there's just no escaping the trauma. If you don't get the trauma within your household, you're going to get it from society. I didn't have a very traumatic childhood. I saw some traumatizing things, don't get me wrong. But compared to a lot of people, I had like peaches and cream, roses and sunshines on a very, very, very low budget. And really am blessed in a lot of ways that I grew up. But yet I'm still riddled with all these insecurities, lack of value, trust issues, relationship issues, compromising myself, pleasing people, placating, plagued with perfectionism, like all these ailments that I can see now had got them from society. It's a traumatic place, and you're going to go through trauma. But if instead of getting so caught up, and this is not to dishonor anybody's trauma that they've been through, this is just to, as one of my spiritual leaders that I follow say, to bring justice to situations that are unjust. Like we can't bring justice to everything, but we can make them just through what it develops within ourselves. And this whole idea, this is where, where I was nodding to earlier and talking towards women, nodding towards talking towards men, and really nodding towards talking to any human on this planet, but definitely within different races as well. Think twice about aligning yourself with any storyline or narrative that has you a victim of your circumstances. And really consider what the difference is between being someone who is a victim of what's happening around them to someone who is empowered and witnessing what is happening around them. Because I know within my own relationships, when I shifted out of the one who was overlooked, neglected, unrecognized, not valued, run over, when I stopped looking at myself from this perspective of why is this happening to me? And why do you have to do all this stuff to me? And instead realized like, wow, this person is tripping, completely unhinged. And all of that energy is just being directed towards me.
Right.
Now I can have a legitimate conversation. I am engaged with all of my faculties in my own empowerment and the resources that we have by divine right to make change in this situation that goes beyond that patriarchal 3D display of changing things in the physical, address the energy of the situation. And instead of putting on my weaponry and getting into battle, I can just simply say, wow, you're having a moment. Would you like some space? Shall I take some space, or do you want to take some space? And then if they say, no, I don't need any space. And you say, well, the way that you're speaking right now was just so not who I know you to be. So until we can get back to that, maybe we should have some space. And what I find happens from there is that person will either get themselves into check so that they can still control and have what's going on and engage. No, I'm not the problem. I'm here. Or they'll totally blow up, take their own space, fizzle out their own fire. But regardless if you started the fire or they're blaming you for starting the fire, don't add fuel to it. Because when alcohol ignites, when flame accelerant ignites, it only goes for so long before it goes out. And when we can remember this, instead of being like, well, you're the one who triggered me, or you're the one that's toxic, or here's how I'm right, or you shouldn't have said, and we can just put down that battle, that's where we're headed. That's what is needed in order to hold the space for the healing that is already underway. We're like birthing forth a whole new world. And the more of us that can wake up and kind of be a doula or a midwife of this process, instead of, saying it needs to look a certain way, I think the easier it will be for all of us. But most importantly, the easier it will be for you. And quite frankly, take this for however you want to take it. How I'm doing is really my top priority, because in my 41, almost 42 years of life, I mean, as far as I can remember, and definitely not in my adult life, I don't have people showing up saying, Crissy, how are you doing? Anything I can do for you? Are you having a good day? Can we make your day better? how can I help your mind feel better? What can we do to ease your mind? Can I get you a little something that you need? That doesn't happen. That's an inside job. And if we don't grow up, allow ourselves to emotionally mature and start to parent ourselves in a compassionate, loving way that maybe our parents should have, but maybe didn't, but we can make up for now through loving ourselves in that way, then we understand that part of being a loving, amazing parent is also getting your ass in gear and making yourself do some things. But the more that you sync up with this idea of being all of who you are, and the more that you can understand that, and if you need help navigating that, reach out to me or somebody who speaks in this language. Will help to show you the way. I mean, I've created or identified over the years a 12-step process that I take people through now. It's holistic restoration. It's what I've named my business after, before I even knew that there would be a 12-step protocol that came from it. But that's what I do. I take you through those 12 levels so you can understand what each part of it is. And anytime that you get tripped up, tangled up, you just work your way back down to that point that you started to go off kilter, and you get right back on track again. It makes it very simple. It allows you to weed out a lot of the noise. And Tish, you talked to this earlier too. Sometimes we do need to distance ourselves from the symptoms, or get the symptoms quieted down some, before we can really address the underlying disease and the root cause of what's going on. And this is like the heart of holistic philosophy and most of natural healing, is that managing the symptoms only does so much. I could say a lot of things about what it does, but we are all aware of what's happening in our world right now. That's what it does. But when we show up and we only try to address the symptoms by changing the way that people talk out in public, or what they wear, or how they represent themselves, or what groups are allowed to gather, or what's okay or what's not okay, that's all symptomatic. And when we get to the heart of it, when we get to the root of it, then the symptoms take care of themselves. They cease to exist. And it's a pretty miraculous thing whenever it happens. You know, if you're dealing with physical health in your own body, it's why I moved past massage and got into the energy work, and eventually the emotional work, and then brought it all home, so that we don't address something in the physical without looking at where the imbalance lies in the emotional and energetic. Because I can push your tissues around all day long, but if you're still running off the same operating system that's causing the same thought process and the same habitual habits, your body's going to show the same exact physical symptoms over and over again. So there is help. It is helpful sometimes to manage those symptoms, get them a bit at bay, distance yourself a bit, so that you can move your healing forward, so that you can be more whole and less likely to kind of stumble moving back in. But once you really work on that foundation, which is why I start people with changing the way that they self-identify, changing the way that they love themselves, the way that they value themselves, and just start a healing process of really cultivating a loving connection with yourself, which for some people, and probably even some people listening to this, that's a pretty foreign notion out there for our society. It gets into those realms of narcissism and egoism, but this goes beyond that. This is getting in touch with your unseen self, and honoring and recognizing the one that's been on this journey all along with you, that internal one who has been with you all along, that has been consistent, that has never left your side, that, you know, might have varying degrees of how it feels about you or how it expresses it. But most likely it talks to you the same way that you talk to it.
Yeah,
but you look
because
at that.
Wow. Yeah, you just got so much that you're saying that is so truthful and everything. And even what you were talking about in the sense of all of these things being a pandemic and everything, because I've had the pleasure of talking to people. And of course, the network IBM.TV is a global network. And I've seen a number of these issues that are not just here in the United States or in North America, but they're throughout the world. Because I know that I've got a friend that lives in California who's from Pakistan. And a lot of things that you're talking about, she also finds in her society, and I've heard this from people in some of the African societies and Australia and a number of other places. So it is definitely something that is impacting us throughout the world, and not just here, unfortunately.
And that commonality, what's the common thread there? I heard you name a bunch of humans. Humans that are going through this. And if we can just redefine what this human experience is, or let me say more accurately, when I redefined what this human experience was for me, when I embraced and took a deeper understanding to what it means to be empathic and to open myself up to this concept that we're all empathic beings, and that those that display the more heavily narcissistic tendencies are super empaths that have been so inundated with this energy that they're in full on survival mode, then we just open up a completely different conversation. We can navigate things in a totally different way. And to me, it just falls more aligned with what I feel to the core of my body to be truth in this world. And what I love the most is that we can test it out. And what's crazy is that you could test out all this stuff. If you put on the filter of everybody's an asshole, you're going to have that experience in this life. Yeah. So why not experiment with the fact that we're all miraculous beings and see what happens if you don't believe anything other than that? And when something other than that presents itself, you use your time, your energy, your focus to undo the mystery, to be a little love detective is what I often call it. That's what I feel like. I'm a love detective. I look for God and I don't stop till I find it. I don't stop. I don't look for the reason. I don't look for the justification. I try my best not to make a survival plan for the other side. I do my best to stay connected and to find how could this be God refining my character? How could this be evolving me? How could this be showing me some hidden wounds that I didn't know that I had, or that I had been so busy defending myself from that I never even stopped to question why I'm doing what I do, because I'm just running off the fact that I know I'm a good person and I got good intentions, and I'm allowing that to let myself off the hook of evolving further. And for us that are on this spiritual path, that's what I feel like is needed. It's time to learn how to just be instead of do, to understand our value is inherent and will not be changed and altered. And quite frankly, if you're tired, stop doing it all yourself and let the universe come and lift you up and support you. And the only way you're going to do that is by risking setting some of this stuff down, getting more honest, risking losing something. Like that is the best thing that I can encourage anybody to get to a place where you realize you have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose. Not in any situation, even if it appears that you have something to lose. I assure you, if that evolves out of your energy field, you will have something better, bigger come into place. And if you're having these repetitive cycles, maybe get some people out of your life. Maybe start to question and start to take a discerning eye to what you're doing to perpetuate these cycles. Because, Mark brought this up earlier about people being in toxic work situations and why are they keep going back to these toxic environments? The reason we go back to toxic habits and limited thinking and limited ways of being is because we're getting something from it. And what we're getting from it is this false sense of security in some way or fashion. We are trading up. We are putting more value in this physical world than in the non-physical world. And a lot of times those things continue to happen until you make that connection and you're willing to take that leap, be it into entrepreneurship or whatever that thing is. Dare, if you don't believe, this is just a random example because I've heard it brought up before. If you're working at a minimum wage job or a job that isn't exciting you with the amount of money that you make, and you're making compromises like that go against your beliefs, like if you don't believe that masks are helpful and you don't believe that you should be wearing one, but you still put one on every day for your job that you're compromising yourself for, really think about that and think about the energetic misalignment with that, and allow yourself, you don't have to jump into quitting your job. I'm not telling you to do that, but begin to contemplate and dream and to allow your imagination to go in that direction. What if I said I can't do this because it goes against the very core of my being? Might sound a little dramatic with the mask, but for some of us, it really is about standing up for what we core believe and what we really feel is right, and refusing to participate in something that we don't feel is honest and legitimate. For some of us, I'm not trying to say one way or the other, right. But allow yourself to be open to the what if I did that and it opened up something more for me? What if it allowed something better to come to me? What if I'm worth more than $15 an hour? What if the reason that I'm stuck in this situation is because I don't allow something more to come to me? And most of us argue that because we see what we do and we're like, there's no way I'm stopping more from coming to me.
That's right.
I assure you that you are, especially if you're not allowing yourself to have the richness of the wholeness of the human that's in front of you, no matter what it is that they're saying or how they're presenting themselves. So I know I've got to run here in a minute, so I don't want to stop though. I'll talk about this for 3 more days if y'all want.
Yeah, we can do this for hours on end. Will tell you that I will let folks talk forever in a day because the show is supposed to be an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours. We've been known to go 3, perfect. 4, and I would have no problem with having these kind of engaging conversation for days on end. By the way, I should let you know, Crissy, you have definitely picked up 2 new fans because I've been following the thread and everything, and I have become a fan of yours, and definitely Zach has become a friend as well because he was saying that you're a very deep spirit, and he was also saying that we are all empathic, and some of us are very empathic, and he went on to say some other things as well. But definitely, that actually raises a question. I know a lot of folks were probably watching this from around the globe. I know what it means to be empathic. I know other folks probably have a definition, but Crissy, since you're our guest, why don't you define for the audience what it means to be an empath? Because like I said, you're using the term, and some folks might not even know what the term means.
Absolutely. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to also let y'all that are tuning in know where you can connect with me more. I see that Mark's got my Facebook page scrolling here at the bottom of the feed. Thank you so much for that. You can also find me at holisticrestoration.com. I have a brand new Patreon page that I just got started. So anybody who wants to support this message getting out there into the world and also gain some support in return, definitely head over to Patreon. It's under CK Rollins, Rollins. And you can plug into some behind the scene videos that I add there, some more expanded in-depth information that I share with my patrons there. And you can also take a deep dive there, and you can plug into a level of support where you get a monthly course from me, as well as being part of my holistic healing circle, and just tons of benefit there. And one of the courses that you'll get whenever you join at the highest tier level is the Empathic Healers course, which I offered in the fall of last year. It's definitely my highest, most requested course that people always want me to do again and again and again. But I have it nice and recorded and online for you to access, and you'll get full access to it. It will take you in depth into really understanding what it means to be an empath, and what do you do with that, and how do you move through this world in a way that allows you to continue your own healing process and also facilitate healing for those in front of you, even if you don't even exchange a word with them, even if you don't get into a healing practice. This is just, you continue your life as an insurance agent, and along the way, everybody that you touch, you have a healing experience with. So definitely check me out on Patreon. Find me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well, and check out my website. And I'm also on YouTube. I make a lot of videos and plug them on YouTube, but I'm trying to move everything over to Patreon so that you can get the most in one spot there. And I also have an Awakened Intuition workshop series that's underway right now that happens the second Saturday of each month that y'all can plug into. We do it live here in Raleigh. So if you're in person, you can come in person, or if you're at a distance, you can plug in. Even if you're just at your home in Raleigh because you're not going out, that's okay too. You can plug in online. It's super affordable, and I'm taking you through a series of different modalities that you can tap into, different tools that you can work with to help you to better understand your intuition. Next Saturday, we're going to be talking about healing crystals and gemstones.
Wow.
In November, we'll be talking about astrology and how you can use that to help to better understand yourself and other people. Last month, I did an introduction to the chakra system and energy balancing. So if you join through Patreon at the second tier level, you get access to the past workshops, and the future workshops are included at the second and above level. But you can also just do the one-off workshops too, is there for you. And I'm going to answer your question too about an empath. So an empath is someone, you think I do this professional for a living, right? No, I just really appreciate when I get into the flow of things. So thank you for letting me share all that.
I do too.
So being an empath basically just means you are able to perceive what is happening in the world around you beyond what meets your 5 major senses. That's it. It's taking a beyond scientific and beyond normal approach to interpreting the world around you. And so in simple layman's terms, it's just becoming aware of the unseen elements that are making up this physical experience that we're having. So it helps you to understand what is going on not only with these physical circumstances that are around you, but also what is coming up internally. When I got into business coaching and helping other business owners find their way in this business world who don't self-identify as business owners and aren't money hungry and don't have that intestinal fortitude to knock on all the doors and go through all the rejection. When I started talking to business owners about the steps that were needed to move their business forward, I quickly realized that we can talk about actions all day long, but until you have the internal mindset and alignment happening, you're not going to show up. You're not going to follow through. You're going to judge how you're showing up or not showing up. You're going to have cycles of procrastination and self-doubt. And when you understand how to energetically align, you'll find that even aspects that you don't enjoy about your business, you have no problem doing because you're starting from a truer point. And a lot of people get into business because they're trying to gain something. So even that, now you can start to see, given our previous conversation, that if you're not in touch with your inherent value, if you think there's something more for you to gain or to prove your worth out there, you're going to have a very hard time in the entrepreneurial field. And especially if you're conditioned into this overgiving mentality, and all this stuff is super subtle. It's easy to think, oh, that's not me. I remember the first time somebody said, well, it's the stories that run in your head that keep you from taking action. I was like, dang, people got stories in their head. I'm glad I'm not one of them.
Energy is always so subtle, and people don't pick up on it. They don't know that they're picking up on it. What I always tell people is we're exchanging energy right now. What your body's doing is figuring out what's going on and jiving with our talk is just talk. That's all that's going on here. Especially when you're in person, it's all about the energy, and it's so subtle, and people don't know it. You know, when you're talking about being empathic, there's so many times, and I'm sure you've been like this, that you've been in a room and people, you know, oh, they're talking. And you're like, that's not at all what's going on. Can nobody else feel this? Did you not just, I can't say, did you hear what that person said? I can't say, did you see what they did? You know, but it's like, can you not feel that?
Yeah. And a very simple way that I think most of us can relate to, if you've ever been in a place and had somebody else walk into the room and you instantly felt drawn to go towards them or instantly felt to move away from them, that is the energy of an empath. That's your empathic energy body that is intermingling with other people's energy. And because, you know, like we've said throughout this show, we're building on a foundation that's not telling us the whole truth. When you bring that expansion in, or even just allow yourself to experiment with life from the point of what if, which reminds me of the book that I'm writing right now. I'm in the process of writing my first book where that's what I'm posing is giving you an opportunity to do some deep self-reflection over some powerful what if questions that I assure you will change your life. That just reading them will change your life. But if you can allow yourself to play in that space of what if there's something more to it? What if there's a reason why I'm reacting this way? What if it's not just about not triggering other people, but what if it is about evolving my character, not to where I placate and cater to, but where I choose to be different than how I am because I can see how that best represents me, which is why it comes back to how you view yourself, the value you hold for yourself, and the relation that you have with yourself, because you will not show up as your own advocate and do whatever it takes to have whatever your heart desires until you love yourself to that degree that you can do that. And it's a balance of loving yourself and just embracing what you came here for. And again, I know that can trigger stuff all in itself, but if y'all want to talk more about it, reach out to me one-on-one. I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, I think it's also about how you know how your energy is and being able, because that's one thing that Reiki 1 taught me, is about not giving that energy, that you can still participate in a conversation or be in a room, but your energy is yours. So it's your choice as to what you decide to do with it.
You got it. Absolutely. So and the more that you become aware of it, the less entrained you get into with other people, because that's what we don't realize. And that's what I take you through with the Empowered Empath course. You get to, or the Empathic Healing course, you get to learn the 7 rules of what it means to be an empowered empath. You begin to understand how you get energetically entrained with other people, because all this just happens. It happens to every single one of us. And there's ways that you can break that entrainment. And this is so different than putting up a shield and blocking out the negative vibe. This is totally different. This is the next level of this. This goes
you're still
beyond
giving and receiving.
Yes. When you are blocking and when you are removing and when you're doing that severing, you're still not in the fullness of everything. Where
Right.
we're trying to move to and where we're being invited to step into, it goes beyond right or wrong. And it goes
Yes.
into a place where right and wrong coexist together,
Yes.
and you can see how one cannot be without the other.
Yes.
And you also see how you can choose to participate in one or the other, or you can choose not to. And how if other people do, it's not right or wrong. It just simply is the way that it's meant to be for whatever unfolding we are collectively going towards. And that, in a nutshell, is what it takes to be human and moving forward in this crazy, crazy world. But I assure you, if you're here right now, you have what it takes. You have what it takes, and you're needed, and it's necessary. And if you're feeling really overwhelmed, I know a lot of people are struggling with depression and the overwhelmness and the anxiety and all the limitations that seem to be imposed on us. And I'm just telling you, I'm telling you right now, that overwhelm that you're feeling it from the world. It is not all yours. You do not have to carry it all. It is not all your responsibility to clear. And if you're getting hit with it heavy, just understand it is there to pass through you, because you are a chosen one, and you will be responsible with it. You will know what to do with it. You will not inflict harm on yourself or others, and you can allow it to pass through you and just look for the healing that's there for you. And I know that somebody really needed to hear that, because I needed to hear that a couple years ago when I was on this floor crying my eyes out and just wanting this whole crazy thing to stop.
Yeah.
Until someone helped me. I don't even know. I helped me. God helped me. I don't know. That perfect timing came together where things started to click, and that more came into focus, and where what I'm here for and what I'm not became more clear. And if I can find relief through this, if I can bring relief to just one other person that's been on the floor crying, then that's what I'm here for. So if it happens through podcasts like this, awesome. If it happens through finding support on Patreon, I so appreciate all the support that I get there. And, if it happens through more in-depth one-on-one work, I'm just honored to be a guide. And I thank y'all for listening and watching for this long. It's a true honor to make it to the end of a video and have people watching it in a replay. So I thank you.
You did an amazing job. You're just such an amazing lady, Crissy. So I definitely want to thank we've got great guests to come on this show on a regular basis. I want to thank Tish for bringing you to the table here, because you just did a great job of sharing your wisdom and all of that. So, Crissy, I definitely wanted to thank you for joining us and all of that, because, like I said, you just have so much wisdom. And like I said, I could go on talking to you for hours on end, because you just have so much wisdom that you are willing to share. And I definitely appreciate that in its fullness and all of that. So definitely, like I said, I could go on staying here till it's already close to 3.
Have me back. Have me back anytime.
We will.
Have me back anytime.
If you want to, we will.
Definitely have you back for sure. There's no doubt about that and everything. I was actually just even thinking, Tish, about her knowledge and about that empathic experience. I'm well into my late 50s and everything, and I was thinking about a time that I had that experience, and it was when I was in high school of all time. But I went to a journalism seminar, and as soon as I walked in that seminar, and these were folks from Maryland down to Georgia, I had already felt like I knew those people, because I had had some sort of dream connection or some sort of connection with them. So I felt like I already knew these folks even before we went through our 2 or 3 month program and everything of that nature. So like I said, that happened to me 40 years ago and everything, but it still resonates with me having that experience way back then. So I do think that we have to be in tune to what the dreams, the energy, and everything tries to share with us on a regular basis. Because I think that you would agree, Crissy, that we get these messages oftentimes, whether it's in our dreams, whether it's in our observations of nature, our observations of life, but it does seem that we have these things happen to us regularly. And as one that is going to be in tune with your empathic self and everything, you have to try to understand when you're getting these messages and what those messages are telling you about that energy transfer and where you fit into the humanity picture and things of that nature. So would you agree with me on that?
Absolutely.
Crissy?
100%. I just did a video like a week or two. It's up on my YouTube channel about understanding dreams and how dreams are getting heightened for a lot of people. So if you've been being nudged by your dreams, go over there and check that out for sure. And we'll be covering dreams also in the Awakened Intuition series. So if that's something that y'all are interested in dipping your toe into and starting to understand that process a little bit more, I think of myself as like a permission slip. I'm like a giant permission slip to let people know it's okay to be fully yourself. It's okay to be exactly who you are. And it's okay to dive into and experiment with these things without being an expert. which I think is really important, because we have permission. They've been given here to us to use to better understand ourselves. And maybe some people want to keep stuff under lock and key so that they can monetize it. And what have you. But I'm here to say we're in a new world and it's a new time. And yes, if you want to represent yourself as a professional astrologer, you should do your due diligence and really study the trade for sure. But if you're just interested, you have permission to like Google it on YouTube or to find out a little bit more about it, or just say, what does that mean whenever I dream about, you know, a bunny rabbit in a green field or whatever it is, and just begin to flirt and play around with the universe in a different way and allow yourself to have more fun. There's absolutely no evidence that says this has to be serious or an intense situation or a big deal. And in fact, a lot of us are suffering because we're taking it all so serious and we're so certain it needs to go a certain way. And if you can't tell, 2020's taught you nothing. It's that you can't control what is going to happen, and what's going to happen is going to happen. And regardless if you agree or believe, whatever, it's just, this is the place where shit goes down. And so when we can learn how to not take it personal, and we can turn all of our worrying into being a warrior without fighting wars along the way, then we can step into a whole different experience and really have some fun together.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love y'all. Thanks so much for all of your kindness.
Yeah. Before I find out from Tish who we've got next week and all of that, if you would, Crissy, where can folks find this book of yours? You talked about, and I did have the Facebook rolling, but where can they find the book when it is released? And then we'll find out from Tish who we've got next week. But I know you're in the process of writing it, but folks might be wanting to follow your path so that when the book is released, they can grab it. I know I plan to grab a copy whenever you release it. Yes,
for sure. So Patreon's going to be the best place for that. I'm going to be looking to my patrons to help me to get everything going, all the way from, you know, giving some little sample excerpts so you can kind of see what I got cooking to make sure that it's really hitting the mark for people, up to making sure that I can fund it to get published and to have copies in paperback and all of that stuff. So as those pieces come together, then I'm going to be sharing that mainly through probably my social media outlets, but all of it's going to point back to Patreon. So if you're already familiar with Patreon, head over there. You can probably search for me, Crissy Keye Rollins, or just put CK Rollins and it should come up for you. And if not, just hit me up and I'll make sure that you get a link for it. And my family and I started an Etsy shop too. So that's another way that we're creatively expressing ourselves and bringing more healing and goodness to the world, and helping you to increase mindfulness and to play around with gemstones and different plants and different things so that you can get more. I do essential oil infused products, and I have some smudge sticks right now that are drying up that I can't wait to list on there, and a lot of different crystals, and just a really great way to introduce bringing more of these healing elements into your physical environment, and to give you permission to open up those doors to have a bigger connection to nature, to yourself, to this universe. And I welcome all the support. And as anybody who knows, Tish has been following me for a while, I offer plenty of support in return.
That's why she's here, because she gives it, like you said. I mean, you are the voice, you are the permission slip, and you're not always like, but you got to pay me for it. You don't just give that. You actually give information that makes your brain go, wait.
That's
what?
Another one of those limiting human experiences. It looks like everything happens in a linear equation. So if I show up and give, I should be able to receive, but that's just not how it works. So when you can settle into the fullness of who you are, as I've been learning to, then there's a point where it just stops being about me and it is about the message, because me being here is to bring the message. And if I focus there and on being and representing the work that I teach, then everything else should be taken care of, right? So that's what my endeavor is towards, is learning how to do less and receive more, and to always be balancing that giving and receiving, and to find the places that I hold myself back because of the way that I'm limiting myself in other ways that aren't even connected to the financial, which is why I think the first book that I'm going to put out is the abundance focused one. It pulls directly from the 21-day money power shift, which is another amazing course that you'll get at that high tier level on Patreon. Patreon, it's such a powerful way to be able to shift the way that you think about receiving in your life and what you feel like you have to do in order to have that happen. And these things that happen so subtly, it's why the courses got created, because I've implemented them in my life. I saw the way that they worked, and I was like, there's something to this. And that's how I get by every single day, is by doing the work that I share with people. So it's kind of hit that point where it's like, I'm going to be doing this regardless. So if other people can benefit from it, I'm going to put it out there. And I trust fully that I wasn't given this message in my heart, or the gift to use words the way that I do, or my insatiable curiosity towards all this, or my gluttony for punishment to subject myself to all this confrontational stuff, whatever it is, I'm going to be doing it. And I believe that life's going to meet me. And I think the shift for 2020 has just been a clarifier for me. It's like, oh, I was just training for this really weird time that I'm strangely adapted to and able to move through in a way that others can't. So, all this time I was just ahead of my time. So now's the time, and we're receiving the calling, and I honor y'all for showing up and for doing your part and continuing to plant those seeds, because that's really what it takes.
Yes.
No, I'm getting a phone call because I got to go to my appointment. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Such an amazing guest and all of that you had once again, Tish. So I need to know who you've got on mind for next week. So I know you're going to have another amazing guest. And then, of course, we'll bring the ambassador on to close everything out as we always do. And then I might bring that either the airplane or your theme back and everything, assuming that everything wants to work correctly. But Tish, who do we have on tap for next week?
It's funny, today we were talking about more of the feminine energies and inside and versus the body and physical. Next week, we actually have a chiropractor who's also a functional doctor. And we're going to talk about taking care of this vessel that Crissy was talking about, this physical, this human vessel, how best to take care of it, understand it from a total point of view versus just, oh, my foot hurts kind of thing. So we're going to talk about the function of the human body and how best we can maximize it.
Sounds great. Sounds like another amazing conversation. I was glad to join you once again. And let's bring the ambassador on and see what she's got to say about those very important things that we need to do during this pandemic crisis that they say that we're in the middle of, about hand washing and all of that. So let's see what the ambassador has got to say about that.
कोरोना से कैसे बचेंगे? हैंड होकर और ऐसे अपने खांसी जब आएगी तो ऐसे करेंगे, अच्छू अच्छू। और कोरोना वायरस को धन्यवाद हमारा म्यूजिक सुनने का।
She's so cute.
She's so cute, and I just love it when she does that. I think we'll go out with your theme that we tried to come in with as well, and hopefully it'll work this time. And then maybe we'll go with the plane after that. But yeah, that's another amazing episode of Plant a Seed, and I think we planted some other amazing seeds.